Hello everyone, welcome back to NEPtunes. This is part 2 of our episodes on experiential learning, and we are exploring the what, how and why of experiential learning. This one being more focused on the how with all the 4 stages of experiential learning pedagogies. I'm Anju Shazo, your host, and with me, as usual, I have Mrs. Anita Karwal, who is a senior policy maker and somebody involved deeply in the drafting of the NEP 2020. So she's going to be having a good discussion with us with all the insights with the 4
this
stages.
time again, Anju, I'm going to be asking the questions.
Oh, that you didn't tell me. All right.
Yes. So let's dive straight in. Now, firstly, how relevant do you think is experiential learning for foundational stage? So what we are going to do right now is we'll go stage by stage, and for each stage, I'm going to pick your brains.
Whatever is there. Okay. So you are asking about the
relevance of experiential learning to the foundational
stage. That is really the first really important fundamental block of the future adult life, and this is really the stage where children are really engaged and need to do a lot of play-based multisensorial activities which are really done in concrete ways. So for that, experiential learning is probably the only way out. I don't see what other pedagogies can be used, because whatever else is used is not natural to the child's way of learning.
That's actually exactly what the NEP and the NCF say, and they are very clear that we need to move away from this premature introduction of formal academic content at this stage, and actually instead focus only on joyful experiences for children in this stage. So my next question that comes out of this is, how would teachers apply the experiential learning pedagogy, the approach and the methodology to this particular stage, to the stage of foundational
Yes, it would seem that it's difficult, but actually we can do it in very simple ways. So we spoke in the part 1 of the episode about the 3 steps, largely about prior knowledge, real experiential activities and reflection. Even if these are children who are part of the foundational stage, which is really children who are in pre-primary and grade 1 and grade 2 in a school, these young children can still be engaged in, they always have some knowledge. See, we believe that, oh, I'm the teacher and they don't know enough. But children always know something about everything. Or they may imagine something about it, which may be right or it may be a misconception. So it's very important for a teacher to actually allow children to express their understanding of something through prior knowledge activities, which means that you can ask them to talk about it, to draw something related to it. Children will do these 2 or maybe say 1 or 2 words about it, or even in a form of a story. Then the other part of it is, of course, planning the experiential learning activities, which should be always using different senses. That is very important at this stage, because children are exploring the world through visual, through auditory, through a sense of touch. And I want to emphasize here, the sense of touch is not used enough in the educational system. So let us say if they're making alphabets, okay, that's something that all schools are going to be doing. Touching them, not only touching them, using ropes to make it, putting it in sand. You can be doing it with your eyes closed, eyes open, writing. I used to do a kinesthetic dictation. Children, you want to teach kids spelling. So I used to tell young children to just pick up a word and write it on the back of another child. And the other child has to guess letter by letter what is the word, or write it as the other child is drawing on your back. This is such a simple thing that you can do in activity in pairs, and that is bringing the sense of touch. So you might also ask them to physically form the shape of a letter or even a number using their bodies.
With their bodies, yeah.
They love doing that.
Yeah.
And another group may be adding on to that, etc. So, and the final stage of after the experiential activities is the reflection again. And in that again, young children are very well able to express what they enjoyed. See, children are very connected to the emotion that time. So they will be saying, oh, I love this, I found this, I didn't like to do this, and which is all right also. So they're very frank. So we can ask.
So it would be verbal at this stage.
Verbal, that is the easiest. They'll just share what they enjoyed, but they're actually beginning to reflect already. We can ask them to express their emotions. How did this make you feel?
Yeah. So there are 2 more things I remember you said the last time, which add a lot of value to the whole implementation process. One was time management you had mentioned, and perhaps at this stage shorter activity periods would be very effective and with frequent transitions. And you also mentioned about flexible seating arrangements.
Yes.
Maybe at this stage the seating arrangement should be cushions on the floor or maybe outdoors.
Very important.
Yeah, and mats, etc. So
I was just recently with the University of Cergy, which is a French university, and they're working on the School of Happiness across the world. And one of the things they said that research shows is about the flexible seating arrangements. So that creates happiness, well-being in the child. So the fact that young children can be sitting on the floor or sitting on a chair or even on a very soft cushions will allow them to read easily, to write. It's not, we don't have to force children to sit on a chair and table because that may not be natural to them.
Yeah.
So allowing them that is that flexibility so that they enjoy that contributes to the well-being of the child.
Amazing. So now let's move on to the preparatory stage. This is the stage where the age group is about 8 to 11 and grades are 3 to 5. So at this stage, Anju, what I have, as part of the NCF and NEP development process, what I have understood is that we need to now at this stage introduce in a very gradual fashion more structured learning experiences. And at this stage, the students are able to slowly start connecting their concrete experiences to abstract concepts. And also, children are absolutely ready for activity-based and experiential learning. So, Anju, please help me out here and tell me, give me more concrete applications of experiential learning at this stage.
So if we look at also the psychosocial development of the children as per Erikson's stages of development also of the psychological aspect also, children are now learning to connect with their peers, and this is a time that structure, we can start giving children a sense of structure. One of the things that brings structure is board games or games because they have rules. And children now have to learn to play with rules, and they enjoy doing that. So through those games, if class teachers and teachers allow children to not only play those games, but to identify what are the rules that they have to abide by when they're playing the games, write down those rules, that brings in the language again, and children begin to get a sense of structure as well as cooperation with their peers. So this is an important part. Now, if you're looking at experiential learning, again the stages like we said, prior knowledge, main activity and reflection, then in prior knowledge children now can go to a more sustained way of expressing, which could be through debates or discussions, or they could be using icebreakers, and then after an icebreaker the child can express what they know about that particular concept. Also children then can be doing a lot more structured work in terms of questionnaires, surveys, data collection. So let's say that if you're doing an activity about languages, you could ask the children to go around your school campus and interview 5 people to know what languages do they speak, and then later on use that data in the classroom.
So that would be the experiential part.
Yes. Yeah. So these are the kind of things children can do. Now in order to go and do that activity, children would need to develop the questionnaire in terms of language and a flow. So all this logical thinking and structure comes at this age, and this is the age also we can start now making more connections between the abstract concepts and concrete to abstract. Now they can start moving a little bit more towards the abstract things. Also, I think finally peer learning, this is the age when they will begin to, because they need to learn. When they're younger, they are much more driven by their own needs, but now by this age, because they like to play with each other, now they're beginning to accept peers. The other thing is also the reflection. Finally, end of this entire cycle of experiential learning, reflection now can take form of written reflection, where they can journal their ideas, even if it's writing a paragraph with a little image they can draw. They can also start cutting and pasting certain things. If they've gone somewhere, they can take that, put it in their journal, which can be like a portfolio. So reflection can now start becoming a little more structured at this age.
Okay. I want to add from our last conversation, you had mentioned in the last conversation that allowing children to make mistakes at this stage is really crucial. and when they come into the preparatory stage, they're a little more self-conscious. So this is actually the very crucial time when we must allow them to make mistakes and not be judgmental about it. Secondly, I had read about this research about something called error positivity, which talks about how we need to normalize error as a part of learning. So every time we make a mistake and we become aware that we have made a mistake through some kind of extraneous judgmental process or otherwise, it's called error negativity, and that doesn't lead to any kind of cognitive growth. However, if there is error positivity, where we understand that there is a mistake and we try to correct that mistake, that error positivity actually leads to better growth of the brain, better cognitive growth. So it is really crucial at this stage that we allow errors and allow mistakes, and we give positive feedback.
Absolutely. Now a very practical example is coming to my mind as you speak. Let us say that they are young children and you are going to ask them whether this particular object is going to float or sink. Now obviously it is not for the teacher to tell the child that this is going to float or sink. You're going to ask the child, why don't you test it? Let's just take this object and put it in a tub of water, a small cup or whatever basin, and let's see. And let the child do it. And then ask the child, now what do you think? What did you think? And what is, so the feedback is coming from reality. The feedback is not coming from the teacher or an authority figure. We need to encourage children to draw their own conclusions. So making a hypothesis, all children always have an hypothesis about how things work. And maybe the hypothesis may be right or wrong. So allow them that space.
That reminds me of something in my school days. Such questions used to be there, you know, when if you throw a feather and something else along with it, what will land first, etc. I do not remember ever doing that experiment physically. It was always in the papers, in the textbooks. And from there I had to sort of rote learn it. I had never done it physically.
And we just don't understand, because if you don't do those things, there is no real understanding happening. And there is never any experimentation happening even later on. So children need to be engaged in action, and where the feedback is not coming, like I said, from the authority figure. Otherwise, we're going to be always waiting for the teacher to give us the right answer.
So let's now move to the middle stage. This is the stage where children are in grade 6, 7, 8, and the age group is 11 to 14. And this is the stage wherein NEP actually envisions that there will be a transition period where the subject areas become more distinct. Subject teachers are introduced actually in the class, and there is more multidisciplinarity, more interdisciplinarity, and the problems that children will be solving will be much more complex at this stage. So for this particular stage, that is 11 to 14-year-olds, how should experiential learning be adapted in the classrooms?
This is such an important stage because this is the beginning of the identity formation. Because these are the pre-teen years, so a lot of things are going on for the children. So if you just take in pedagogically for prior knowledge, this is the time that children can actually be involved in more critical ways of analyzing. So they may be having very thoughtful questionnaires, they may be having more thoughtful debates. They like doing that at this age. When you are planning experiences, teachers can now plan more complex questionnaires or experiences with community-based engagement, projects with the community, or let's say doing some project with environment related. They might go to the nearby water bodies and see how, what is the pH level of the water, what is the level of pollution or in the air or water, etc.
That is what bagless days are for actually.
So it's already there. We already have the opportunity to do it. We have the policy and we have the curriculum framework. So there is, it's so easy to do it now. The other thing is also, of course, this is the time that children have now developed good motor skills and psychomotor skills. So this is a time that we can bring in more complex things in terms of objects and tools. They're going to be able to handle those things, whether it is technology, whether it is, doing things like making dishes in the cafe, or handling a little more complex tools. So it's more hands-on. The reflection also then becomes more in-depth. Now they're able to write a little more about their reflection. They're able to share. They're able to think at a more deeper level what they learned, what they enjoyed, what were the difficulties. I think this is the time the teachers can also encourage children to make the real life connections in between whatever they've learned and analyze that. So let us say if you're looking at newspaper articles, what does this really mean? They can begin to analyze the language in a particular article, or looking at cartoons which are there. Children are also capable of some abstract work at this age. So for example, concept mapping, actually making a kind of a mind map around things. Children are able to do that, and they enjoy doing that at this particular age. It can be very easily introduced where children can explore the connections between different ideas. There is also a very important part of the group work now. See, this is the time identities, likes, dislikes are being formed. So children are bound to enter into some sort of either agreements or even disagreements. They have fights, they have friendships, all these things happen. So it's very important that the teacher encourages children to through icebreakers and activities where they do some bonding, they get to know each other, and also they learn to do collaborative work. It is a task that will bring the children together. If they're given a good task, engaging, in which they are involved deeply, then they're going to forget momentarily about their conflicts, and they're going to be engaged in that work, doing it together. So they'll understand about roles and responsibilities. That's something that the group can decide, who's going to do what when we are going to be doing this task. The assessment in experiential learning can become a little more nuanced as opposed to the previous stage. So it's again making the connections between disciplines, because now they're going a little more into disciplinary work, but the connections remain and they must become still remain explicit. So final thing I would say is about the peer-to-peer feedback. It's important that children now learn the language of giving constructive feedback to each other. It's till the earlier years it was a little more simple. We were able to do this activity together, we weren't able to do it together, she was not interested or he took more time, etc. But now it has to be formulated in a way which is validating and given to between peers. So that's something they can learn.
So this would also bring in a certain amount of interpersonal skills and how to deal with certain situations, etc. It's very interesting. And also you had mentioned last time about the teacher's role. So in this case, in the middle stage, as I see it after your explanation, so the teacher's role is now shifting further more towards facilitation, and students are slowly taking up much more ownership of their learning, and they are almost ready to design their own learning experiences.
Yes, this is the time they can actually express what they want to do, and the teacher can ask them that, okay, how do you think you would do this? What do you think you're going to learn out of this? So children are very well, in fact, if we do that, it makes it more participatory and there's more ownership also.
So Anju, let's move to the secondary stage. This is the stage in which we have children in the age group of 14 to 18, a very difficult age, and grades 9 to 12. And the NEP actually emphasizes for this stage sheer multidisciplinary approach and some amount of specialization. As we know, in the 11th and 12th standard, there are these baskets of subjects and children can pick up as per their own choice. And experiential learning also, I feel, would take the form of things like research projects, community service, perhaps small internships, etc. Anju, please tell me, how does experiential learning mature at this level?
Oh, yeah, that's a very good word to use, because maturity is what is setting in now, and we would also aspire children to develop that maturity. They're going to be stepping very soon, in few years' time, into the adult world. So this is the time that identity formation is still going on. It is still in a flux. Some children have decided what they want to do, some are still searching. So but at this stage, children are now searching to be more independent. So learning then becomes a little more self-directed. The analytical abilities are better, so and they like it. Children like to be challenged in the terms of analysis. So whether it is analyzing an advertisement and looking at how is gender depicted in this advertisement, or looking at a meme, or looking at some posts, how is the language being used in this to manipulate or to force or manipulate somebody to buying a particular product. All those things children are able to look at those analytically. Also, we can plan more complex experiences which can span over a longer period of time. When children are younger, you have shorter time cycles because children need to have an outcome and close on something. But when children are older at this age, they can project into the future and they can carry on a project which is over a longer span of time much more easily. So it may be research based, it may be again community engagement projects. So research is again a very important skill that children need to develop. It can start earlier at the preparatory stage also, but middle years it becomes a little strong, and now it should be the strongest actually, because it'll bring in the academic integrity, it'll bring in all those important things. So reflection, then again children need to also think about the diversity of viewpoints, because this is the age where they want to put forth their viewpoint, their own viewpoint. So they're going to fight, and it's a good thing to do, because we must encourage them to defend their viewpoint. At the same time, they have to learn to accept another person's viewpoint and listen to it. So this is the age where you can bring in a lot of debates. Children, adolescents love debates. So higher secondary, secondary stage is perfect for that.
And it is perfect for developing leadership skills as well.
Yes, and articulating your thoughts, structuring your thoughts, and logical thinking there. Then you also have the record keeping, the journaling of their reflection journals, the processes that they've gone through. So the learning is not just outcome driven. It is actually the process which is really, which needs to be written down carefully, which in the different steps need to be identified by the learner, that I did this and therefore I learnt it. I think I learnt it best because this happened. So maybe I'm more visual, maybe this kind of techniques help me. Children can be encouraged to become more aware of their own processes of learning. So their portfolios can also use technology, it can use other artwork, cutting, pasting, sketching, drawing, doodling, writing words, poetry, or any form of reflection would be so important, because it's also about self-expression. And assessment continues with the formative part, because they do need more qualitative feedback even at this stage, though they're preparing for competitive exams at the end of this cycle, no doubt, but formative assessment still is very important at this stage with the quality of reflection. Finally, I think they are able to think about how are they going to apply this in a real life. So we need to bring in those projects, process, where whatever they've learned can be applied in some other sphere also.
So here again I want to add from my learning from your previous conversation, that it appears that in the secondary stage, the teacher is no longer an instructor at all. There is no element of instruction left, and the teacher becomes a mentor and a resource person for the journey of the students, the learning process and the learning journey of the students. And the students actually in the secondary stage take complete ownership of their time management, of their resource planning, of their overall experience, of their entire learning journey. I think that is what it appears to me.
Yes, it also means that the teachers have to be flexible with the children. That means, because we are talking about self-directed learning. So if a child has to submit something, you have to engage the child saying, all right, when do you think you can complete this work? That is how the child will take ownership on the task, and also learn about time management. Time management is not when the teacher says you have to finish this in 1 week. That's an authoritarian way of doing it. The time management, you ask the child, when do you think, how much time do you think you're going to need to do this? And if we both agree, if you're saying 3 days, all right, complete this work in 3 days and let's look at it together again. So these are the things where the child has to be involved in very participatory ways, because that is what is going to bring in the child's self-esteem, identity, cognitive thinking, a lot of skills which are going to be developed.
So let's come, I think that's the end of the 4 stages.
It's now my turn to ask you, because now, we are talking, there's a lot of buzz about NEP and NCF, of course, but everybody always talks about implementation challenges, that all this is great, but what about how is it going to be implemented? So what do you think would be the challenges, and how can schools, according to you in your vast experience, transition to experiential learning approaches?
Anju, like I always say, that the first step is teacher capacity building. Without that, nothing can be implemented effectively. So teacher capacity building, NEP and the NCF require that not only in-service, but also at the level of pre-service. There should be a lot of inputs related to innovative pedagogies, including experiential learning. There is a course called the ITEP, Integrated Teacher Education Program, which has been specially designed for the pre-service program, which includes experiential learning as a pedagogy which has to be learnt by the students in the 4-year integrated B.Ed program. So I would say first is the teacher preparation. The second is schools and teachers need to have a lot of autonomy and a lot of flexibility in implementing their curriculum, in the pedagogies that they adopt, in the timetables that they come out with, etc. So unless the timetables are reconsidered and the curriculum implementation has a lot of autonomy and flexibility in it, there could be a problem. And I know a lot of schools, because having been chairperson of CBSE earlier, I have seen a lot of schools which have got out of this 45 minutes, 50 minutes cell and bell system, as we spoke in our first episode. And these schools are actually combining 2 to 3 periods to bring in a lot of experiential learning and project-based learning activities. So I think this is what I would like to say.
Yes, I would just like to add to what you said about teacher, building capacity. The teacher training methodology also needs to change, because till now most of the teacher training modules have always been a bit top down also, in the sense that they are directive.
They are not experiential.
Yes, they're not and they're not joyful.
They're not.
I really think that a program should be as joyful for the teacher. The teacher must feel the transformation. The teacher must feel engaged and enjoy that, not even feel the sense of time fly.
Yes.
Most of these training programs, I have attended so many throughout my life, my career. There are so many times I'm sitting and just thinking, when is this going to end? We sit through very boring PPTs. There was this expression that I'm death by PPT. Or you're looking forward to the next coffee break. People are there only to network and not really engage with. And also the trainer sometimes doesn't have the experience of experiential learning with children, because many teachers can make out when the trainer has not been to the classroom. So sometimes some trainers haven't been for a long time, so they're not in sync with it, and the teachers have been. So I think we need to also bring in teacher practitioners who are really good, encourage them maybe as teacher trainers, and bring in those joyful learning experiences.
Both in service and pre-service.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So yes, I think one more thing that we need to mention here, of course, but that will need another episode, is about the assessments.
Yes.
All the rubrics, how does assessment take place? I think that's really a topic for another full episode.
Yes. Maybe more than one full episode.
Actually, yes. So as we wrap up now, as a policy maker and educational administrator, what would you like to say to schools so that they can experience this shift, but they are still feeling a bit overwhelmed by it?
I always have believed that it is very small steps, baby steps, which is going to take us there. So it is very important that we understand that overnight nothing is going to change. We need to understand that this is a journey, and there should be incremental steps which are taken all through the journey. And I would suggest to schools and to teachers that in this whole explanation that you've heard about the how, what and why of experiential learning, start with the step which resonates the most with you or with your ethos or with your culture of your school, etc. And take it from there, take it gradually. Anju, what would you like to say? See, you have almost 3 decades of experience of implementing experiential learning. What would you like to say to the teachers and to the schools? How should they go about it?
What has really worked in my experience when I've been working with different schools, one is easy to make changes, so one is a more flexible seating arrangement. In cases where they couldn't shift the benches, etc., I would say, why don't you go out and do something? Do the same activity outside and bring in all those activities into your classroom. Bring in, I used to play birthday games. These birthday games are very fun, with balloons or simple things, catching, and so you transform that into a language exercise, grammar and verbs and things. We used to do all kinds of fun things. So you transform something into a game and go outside and play it. And if you can't do that, just go outside yourself and play a game with your students. That itself will break all the ice. I think the first fundamental foundation to this exercise is the relationship of the teacher with the children. That whole ice has to break from the posture of the teacher into becoming that of a learner. When that shift will happen, automatically we'll all become one group and we'll start learning. So these are simple things that I think teachers can do. So having said that, now I believe it's time to wrap up. So thank you very much, Anita, for again a very engaging discussion on the NEP 2020, on experiential learning, on the stages of experiential learning. I'm hoping that the viewers would have found this useful. Thank you very much for watching this episode of NEPtunes. Until the next time, this is Anju Shazo signing off. Goodbye.